There's always a need for backup power. Whether you're venturing into the great outdoors or preparing for an emergency, technology is a great asset. I'm James Hertz from MakeUseOf.com, and we're here today to talk about the iForway PS500N, a portable power station. Before talking about the operation and features of this device, let's talk tech specs. So the iForway PS500N, or PowerElf 500, comes with a 462 watt-hour lithium-ion battery, and it also features a 500 watt pure sine wave inverter. Let's talk dimensions. It has a width of 11.4 inches, a height of 6.1 inches, and 7.4 inches of depth. Now, when it comes to the weight of the iForway, it weighs a little over 13 pounds. As you might expect from a lithium-ion battery of this size, it does have a decent amount of heft to it. So you can still transport it in the case of an emergency, but if you're using this handle for an extended period of time, you might end up with sore arms. One of the first things you'll notice on the front panel of the device is there is no LCD screen. Instead, what iForway has opted with for this device is an LED focus. So when you're dealing with the power, you're going to hold the power button with a long press, you'll get a green light. Afterwards, you can then tap the power switch to see your current battery level. Now, an important thing to remember about the power button on this device is while this green light is on, the device is powered. So when you're done with it, you need to make sure that you cut off the power button the same way. It will not auto shut off, and you will instead end up draining your battery. Let's talk about the output options on the front of the device. iForway has included 4 USB ports to cover a wide range of needs. These include a 60 watt USB-C PD socket, 1 quick charge USB-A QC 3.0, and 2 USB-A sockets running at 5 volts 2.4 amps. With these 4 ports, you can charge any popular device, so you'll have plenty of charges for your cell phone, tablets, or your laptops. Since we've talked about the 4 USB ports, we're going to talk about the next important item on the front of the device, which is the DC input. This is where you're going to charge your device. It takes a 5mm cable, and included with the iForway is a 19-volt wall charger. On average, it takes between 6 to 7 hours to charge it to full. Personally, I only ran into about a 6-hour charge time. Another way to charge this device is via solar panel. iForway comes with its own line of solar panels, and it recommends either the 60 watt or 100 watt panel for this device. I wasn't able to acquire one of theirs for testing, so instead I went with a Rockpal's 100 watt solar panel. It's still charged in the estimated range of 6 to 12 hours. I think it took around 9 hours while charging. So with any solar panel, just keep in mind what solar panel you're using and the amount of light available on a given day. Also, the iForway is temperature sensitive like other devices, so you do want to keep it out of direct sunlight, so it's advised to keep it behind the solar panel while charging. The last option for charging is via a 12-volt car charging cable. This is probably the longest method, so you may not want to opt into this when charging your battery. Now, one last note before we get away from talking about charging this battery. You want to make sure that you charge it to full before putting it into storage. Afterwards, iForway does advise that you check on it every 3 months just to make sure the battery is maintained. Now, one of the features that makes it really useful for outdoor use and camping is the LED light bar up top. It's a 5 watt LED light, so it's not going to consume much of the battery, but is going to offer a lot of brightness. It's very simple to activate. When the device is powered on, you simply long press this and you'll have 4 modes to choose from. The first is half brightness by default. Tapping on brings you to max brightness. After that, there is a SOS that will repeat in case you're stranded and in need of help during an emergency, and there is also a strobe light. A surprising inclusion with this particular device is the 10-watt Bluetooth speaker. So if you're wanting to have an outdoor party, or you're wanting to quietly listen while charging things, or if you want another emergency backup in case the light fails for some reason, there's a lot of options and versatility that comes with this inclusion. So let's talk about Bluetooth connectivity with the device. So it's a relatively simple thing. By pushing the pause and play button on the device, it will turn on a blue light and it will start flashing blue, indicating it's ready for pairing. On whatever device you're connecting it to, you will see PS speaker. Once you connect that, you're good to go. Now, there's also the option for both volume and playback controls. If you tap the plus or minus once, then it's going to go up or down in terms of volume. If you tap the pause and play button, it's either going to play your song or pause your song, or do the same if you're watching something via a streaming service like Hulu. If you long press the plus or minus, it's usually just going to shuffle songs. Now let's start talking about the back ports of the device, starting with DC. There are 3 DC outputs right here, which are between 9 and 12.6 volts with a share of 10 amps. There is also a car plug or cigarette lighter that is also 9 to 12.6 volts. Now this particular item right here is where there's going to be a good bit of controversy with this particular device. So since this is not a steady 12 volts, this is not a regulated device. So what does this matter? Well, first off, it's important to consider if you're spending $400 to $500 on a battery of this size, that you know all information that's available. If you're not using this port for any purpose, you probably won't care about this. But what it means is you'll run into a few different scenarios depending on the current charge of this battery and overall what voltage is being emitted and what you're using with it. For some devices like a lamp, you may just have something like a performance issue. For a device pulling something more, possibly like a portable refrigerator, it may not cut on at all. It also may be a case where it cuts on initially depending on the surge rate of that device, but it ends up cutting out later. So if you're taking this on a road trip, say with a refrigerator, and it cuts off during the middle of that road trip because the battery has dropped enough, you're going to run into problems. This is why it's important to consider whether you want a regulated device or an unregulated device before purchasing this battery. Now, with this said, there is one major issue that I ran into while testing the battery. This 12-volt socket broke. Now, I don't know whether it was a manufacturing defect or if it was something that happened during transit, but I was only able to test it once when I plugged in a voltage checker into this port and got a rating of 12.4 volts. Afterwards, when attempting to use it on another device, it broke and was unable to be used. So this brings up the question of repairability of a device like this. So when you're dealing with a battery, usually they don't want you opening it up and attempting any self-repair. In this particular case, when I reached out, they tried to see if I could do anything with small tools, but there wasn't anything that could be done at this time. So overall, I wouldn't expect this to be something standard, but I thought it was important to mention it. Now, let's talk a bit about the body of the iForway coming off that bit of damage. So overall, you really don't have a lot to worry about it. It's a very hard metal case, and there is some matte plastic around the speaker. But there's not much ruggedization at all to speak of here. At the very bottom of the device, you do have some rubbering on the feet, since it's meant to be elevated slightly off the ground in case you do take it outdoors. But if you're going to be carrying it somewhere, you do have to be very careful not to bang it or do any other damage to the sides of the device. There's no rubber coating or anything that would protect it otherwise. And well, this probably goes without saying, there's no IP water rating at all for this device, so you want to keep it out of the rain. So let's talk about the AC outlets on the bottom. Since I'm testing the US version, it came with two 110 volt outlets here, but if you're from the UK, that version is also available with the appropriate voltage on the iForway website. Now, it has a rated output power on the AC outlets of 500 watts, and it also handles a surge of up to 800 watts. So, while the 500 watt rating will handle a lot of small appliances, there are the cases where you're not going to know what you're plugging in and you want to make sure you don't damage the battery or the device. So thankfully there is a safety switch. So if you plug in something that is over the power limits for the device, this green LED will change to red and it will power off. So no damage will occur either to the battery or the device that you have plugged in. Now, with all these things in mind, how does the iForway PS500N stack up? Well, I would have liked to see more ruggedization on the unit, as well as a regulated 12 volt. It is an undeniably great product. It provides plenty of power for your everyday needs and any emergency situation that you can run into, as well as providing additional options such as a very strong light source, as well as a surprisingly great Bluetooth speaker. With this all said, I want to give a big thank you to iForway for providing this testing unit. And for you, the viewer watching this video, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below and leave us a like and a subscribe if you will. Now, if you want more details about the unit, be sure to read our written review at makeuseof.com, as well as enter our giveaway for a chance to win your own iForway PS500N to launch your own outdoor party.